Hi folks, I'm back. This week I'm going to be talking about Genesis chapter 42, but before I begin, let me pray in. Dear Father, I just thank you for letting me bring forth your word, Father. I just ask that you just give me your wisdom, Father. I just ask that you just give people receiving hearts and minds. I ask that you just stir people's hearts, Father, to study the Old Testament, Father. I just ask that you just open their eyes to the wealth of information that's in the Old Testament, Father. In Jesus' name, amen. So before I begin this week's study, let me recap what happened last week. Pharaoh had two dreams. One dream told of great plenty that was coming to Egypt, and the other dream told of famine. Well, after Pharaoh had these dreams, one about the great plenty and one about the famine, he was very disturbed, and he called in his magicians to have them interpret these two dreams, but they couldn't. And the reason they couldn't was because the dream was given to Pharaoh by God. So there was only one person that could interpret Pharaoh's dreams, and that was Joseph, because God had already given Joseph the answer to these two dreams. So Joseph was brought out of prison. He was taken before Pharaoh, and sure enough, Joseph did interpret Pharaoh's dreams. Now, Joseph was not a braggart like he was when he was 17. When Pharaoh said that he could interpret his dreams, Joseph turned it back and said, "No, I'm not going to interpret your dream. God is going to give you an answer of peace." The reason that Joseph could say that is because God had already given Joseph the answer to these two dreams. So after he interprets these two dreams, then Pharaoh puts Joseph in charge over the entire land of Egypt. So during the 7 years of plenty, Joseph gathers up all this food, and then when the famine comes, that's when he starts distributing it, not only to the Egyptians, but to everyone who lives in that region. So now I'm going to pick it up with chapter 42, verse 1. When Jacob saw there was grain in Egypt, Jacob said to his sons, "Why do you look at one another?" And he said, "Indeed, I have heard that there is grain in Egypt. Go down to that place and buy for us, that we may live and not die." So Joseph's 10 brothers went down to buy grain in Egypt. But Jacob did not send Joseph's brother Benjamin with his brothers, for he said, "Lest some calamity befall him." And the sons of Israel went to buy grain among those who journeyed, for the famine was in the land of Canaan. Why didn't Jacob send Benjamin? Remember Joseph? He was Jacob's favorite son because he was the son of his old age. As a matter of fact, Joseph was so favored by his father that Jacob just completely ignored his other sons. Well, when Joseph was taken into Egyptian captivity, the position of the favored son fell on Benjamin. So that's why Jacob didn't send Benjamin, because now he was the favored son, the son of his old age. But notice something. It doesn't seem like the other brothers are jealous of Benjamin. So over this period of time, now it's been 20 years, over this 20-year period of time, it seems like the other brothers' attitudes have changed because they don't treat Benjamin the same way they treated Joseph when he was 17. Now Joseph was governor over all the land, and it was he who sold to all the people of the land. And Joseph's brothers came and bowed down before him, just like Joseph saw in his 2 dreams, that people would bow down before him, including his family, with their faces to the earth. Joseph saw his brothers and recognized them, but he acted as a stranger to them and spoke roughly to them. Then he said to them, "Where do you come from?" So Joseph was testing his brothers. I think he wanted to see how they would react after all these years. And they said, "From the land of Canaan, to buy food." So Joseph recognized his brothers, but they did not recognize him. Verse 9. Then Joseph remembered the dreams which he had dreamed about them, and said to them, "You are spies. You have come to see the nakedness of the land." And they said to him, "No, my lord, but your servants have come to buy food. We are all one man's sons. We are honest men. Your servants are not spies." I think Joseph here was just trying to see how they would react to such an accusation. And I'm not going to say anything more than that because I'm not really sure. But he said to them, "No, but you have come to see the nakedness of the land." And they said, "Your servants are 12 brothers, the sons of one man in the land of Canaan. And in fact, the youngest is with our father today, and one is no more." Of course, they didn't think he was alive. You know, they had made up this story to their father, Jacob, that he had been killed by some wild beast. And I guess over time it was playing on their minds, and now they even believe it. That, well, he must be dead by now. Even though they sold him into Egyptian slavery, it has been 20 years, and they don't realize that the guy that's talking to him right now is their brother. But Joseph said to them, it is as I speak to you, saying you are spies. In this manner you shall be tested. By the life of Pharaoh, you shall not leave this place unless your youngest brother comes here, which is Benjamin. Send one of you and let him bring your brother, and you shall be kept in prison, that your words may be tested, to see whether there is any truth in you. Or else by the life of Pharaoh, surely you are spies. So he put them all together in prison for 3 days. Verse 18. Then Joseph said to them, "On the 3rd day, do this and live, for I fear God." Now, I don't know why Joseph said that. Maybe he was trying to clue his brothers into the fact that he believed in the God of Israel. Because in my Bible, as I'm sure it is in yours, the G is a capital G, which signifies that it's the one true God, not some other God like the Egyptians worshipped. Joseph was talking about the one true God, but his brothers remained absolutely clueless. "If you are honest men, let one of your brothers be confined to your prison house, but you go and carry grain for the famine of your household. and bring your youngest brother to me, so your words will be verified and you shall not die. Now, I'm not sure if Joseph actually would have killed his brothers if they didn't bring Benjamin. Again, maybe he's trying to see how they will react to what he's saying, but I'm not sure. And they did so. Then they said to one another, "We are truly guilty concerning our brother, for we saw the anguish of his soul when he pleaded with us, and we would not hear. Therefore, this distress has come upon us." So just imagine, folks, for 20 years, these brothers have been carrying around this guilt, not knowing whether their brother was dead or alive. And now they're standing before their brother, whom they sold into Egyptian slavery, and they don't even know it's him. And Reuben answered them, saying, "Did I not speak to you, saying, 'Do not sin against the boy'?" Yeah, he did. "And you would not listen," which they didn't. "Therefore, behold, his blood is now required of us." But they did not know that Joseph understood them, for he spoke to them through an interpreter. I'm going to jump to verse 25 now. Then Joseph gave a command to fill their sacks with grain, to restore every man's money to his sack, and to give them provisions for their journey. So, even though Joseph spoke roughly to his brothers and was trying to see how they were going to react, nonetheless, he was watching out for them. He gave them back their money, and he gave them provisions for their journey so they wouldn't have to rely on what they were taking back to Jacob and the rest of his people. Verse 27, "But as one of them opened his sack to give his donkey feed at the encampment, he saw his money, and there it was in the mouth of his sack. So he said to his brothers, 'My money has been restored, and there it is in my sack.' Then their hearts failed them, and they were afraid, saying one to another, 'What is this that God has done to us?'" Sure, they didn't understand what was going on. Here, they get to an encampment, they open their bags of grain, and everyone's money has been returned. So yes, Joseph did act roughly, but again, I think he was trying to see how his brothers would react, but at the same time, he was also looking out for them. Then they went to Jacob, their father. By the way, the story here is going to jump between Jacob's name and his other name, Israel. Anyway, they went to Jacob, their father, in the land of Canaan, and told him all that had happened to them, saying, "The man who is the Lord of the land spoke roughly to us, and took us for spies of the country. But we said to him, 'We are honest men. We are not spies.'" Verse 32, "We are 12 brothers, sons of our father. One is no more." Again, they honestly believe that Joseph was dead. "And the youngest is with our father this day in the land of Canaan," referring to Benjamin. Then the man, the lord of the country, said to us, "By this I know that you are honest men. Leave one of your brothers here with me. Take food for the famine of your households, and be gone, and bring your youngest brother to me. So I shall know that you are not spies, but that you are honest men. I will grant your brother to you, and you may trade in the land." So that was the only thing they had to do, folks, was bring Benjamin back with them. Then they could trade in the land and Simeon would be given back to them. Now, I honestly don't think Joseph would have killed his brothers if Benjamin had not gone. I think that's a little extreme. But again, I think he was just testing his brothers to see what they would do and how they would react. And you notice that they're taking things very calmly. And the way they treat Benjamin is so much different than they treated Joseph when he was younger. I mean, it's like night and day. Verse 36. And Jacob their father said to them, "You have bereaved me. Joseph is no more. Simeon is no more. And you want to take Benjamin. All these things are against me." Well, of course, I can understand why Jacob would be upset. You know, he didn't know that Joseph was still alive. And now Simeon is in an Egyptian prison. And now they want to take Benjamin? His replacement for Joseph? His now favorite son? Oh, I can see why that didn't go too well. Then Reuben spoke to his father, saying, "Kill my 2 sons if I do not bring him back to you. Put him in my hands, and I will bring him back to you." But he said, "My son shall not go down with you, for his brother is dead, and he is left alone. If any calamity shall befall him along the way in which you go, then you will bring down my gray hair with sorrow to the grave." Do you know why Joseph was Jacob's favorite son? Because he was the first son of his most beloved wife, Rachel. Jacob loved Rachel. I'm not saying he didn't love Leah, but he loved Rachel with a true infatuation. I mean, he was just carried away by this woman. He didn't have those same feelings for Leah. So that's why he was so enamored with Joseph. That's why he treated Joseph the way he did, because he was the son of his dead wife. So when Joseph was taken into Egyptian captivity, that's why Benjamin then became the favored son, because he was the son that was born as Rachel, Jacob's beloved wife, was dying. Okay, so Benjamin became a replacement for Joseph. But notice, as time went on, and plenty of it has gone on, Joseph's brothers don't treat Benjamin with that hatred that they treated Joseph with. Well, you'll see. Now, all right, folks. That's the end of the lesson. It was a short one. I thought it was a little longer. So I'll come back next week. We'll pick it up with chapter 43. Until then, my name is Dave Martin. God bless you. Shalom. And remember, pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Psalm 122:6.